Hello and welcome to the Audaci-Tea, the podcast by women for women. My name is Lisa. If you haven't met me before, I go by YV Edit on social media platforms, mainly TikTok and YouTube, and I'm joined by my incredible co-hosts. We have the Sovereign Woman.
What's up, y'all?
And Gwen is with us today as well.
Howdy, y'all.
We're so happy to have you back.
Thanks. It's good to be back.
And this week, we are talking about the rise of the Tradwife. I'm extremely excited to dive into this topic because it's been a special interest of mine for like over a decade now because of where I come from, like my religious upbringing. I find it all extremely fascinating, even though I wasn't particularly raised towards that myself. I've always been around it. So I am beyond excited to dive into that with y'all. But before we do that, let's have our tea. What are we thinking about this week? What's been interesting to both of you this week? Why don't we start with Gwen?
So I learned that Idaho can arrest people for helping minors get abortions in other states. So if you're a teenager, you're essentially a property of the state. Also, that your parents can legally marry you off to a much older dude. And if you get pregnant, you're like SOL and tied to your abusers forever. I don't know how much more regressive that this can get for the United States. I think this will be the first of many states to push this kind of law through.
Is Idaho and Utah similar? As far as like the Mormons and all that stuff, or no?
Yeah, Idaho has like a really scary panhandle so it's next to Washington. So I'm a little bit familiar with Idaho. And most people know Idaho as like Coeur d'Alene and like it's really close to Spokane and stuff like that. But there is some really regressive areas of that state, specifically that little panhandle that touches Washington and Canada and the state that's right next to it. It is apparently so bad that like it's just not recommended to go there if you are in any type of like minority class at all, like even as women, but especially, people of color. It's very much as bad as like it gets.
And you said this was Idaho?
Idaho, yeah, the little panhandle.
Wow. Oh, just the panhandle part. Okay. So it's like every other panhandle, like the Texas panhandle, the Oklahoma panhandle. It all gets a little rural out there.
Yeah.
I gotta say.
Stuff like that just makes me want to start some kind of organization to help these girls flee. Like when you turn a certain age, just fucking run away and come to this place and we'll look out for you. Like, oh my God.
Absolutely. It's like immigration within the United States. Like you're going to have to apply for asylum or something in like blue states at some point.
Yeah.
Just like a refugee status from living in a rural county and going to like the bigger cities.
And because this is all so closely tied with racism and white supremacy, I mean, Ryan is literally looking up an article right now that says North Idaho and Spokane have been a historical hotbed for violent white supremacists. And it's literally the photo is of a burning cross and a burning swastika.
Wow.
So
I can't talk because I live like 30 minutes from Galveston, and Galveston was pretty bad at one point too. So yeah.
And so that's what giving it back to the states means. Like these are the states we're giving it back to.
Yep. So I learned that about Idaho. And then I was also, so for my class on international economics that I've been taking, part of our end of year final was doing like a 5-page report on like a chosen country's currency and like their economic policies and things like that. And so I chose South Korea for obvious reasons. Just because it was like the path of least resistance and it would just be a lot easier for me to do it. So that's whenever this whole thing in South Korea was going down. And I watched in real time as like the South Korean won, the KRW, was like plunging as I was writing my report about their currency and like their trade deficits and things like that. So basically kind of what was going on over there is that the president was kind of pulling like a Korean version of January 6th and just initiating a coup d'etat on their system over there because he was already on fire for fraud or maybe like embezzling. Like he just had a lot of bad shit attached to him, and his wife especially too. Like especially his wife, I know that like she was also going to be on fire soon. But they mobilized like as fast as they did because South Korea's history is steeped in dictatorships. So they didn't get democracy or any sort of democratic processes like we have until about like 1987, after they protested like hell against the past two dictators. So Korea for a long time was not like kind of what it is now. It was actually had a lot of wartime recovery because they had gone through at least 50, 60 years of just nonstop conflict, because they had Japan over there for a while, then they had North Korea, then they had China. So all that was just kind of a concurring snowball. And after 1987, they protested like hell against Chun Doo-hwan and Park Chung-hee, who he ruled for 20 years, if I remember correctly. And they were kind of shaking off all those policies because he did not want a democratic process or any democratic anything going on in Korea, because that would mean that people would have more power to say oh, you're he's unpopular, so we should impeach him. But he didn't want to be impeached, and that's the whole thing.
And this happened in Russia too. And yeah, I was so mad when this happened because I was like, y'all are just literally giving Trump the blueprint. He can do this in this country. And I heard too that the parliament in South Korea had to break their way into the building to be able to vote because he was trying to keep them out.
So the military was there to be able to prevent those members from entering the building. They weren't supposed to be there to threaten the civilians, but they were anyways, because the civilians got involved fast, because the civilians are old enough to remember around the 1980s whenever they had the dictatorship, and they did not want that again. They were we will not go back. So they were rallying fast to stand in front of the armed militia guys to be able to allow the parliament members to come through, so that way, they would be ashamed to shoot a citizen instead of a parliament member. So they had to have those members go in because they're the only ones who can vote to lift a martial law. So yeah, so South Korea is actually, for a long time, I know they had various instances of martial law being put into place. And all those times that they had martial law, it just got seriously bad for them, because that just is what allowed the dictatorships to happen for them. So they did not want that to happen again. They mobilized fast to be able to shut that down ASAP. And I'm really proud of the women, especially, who stood up and were are you pointing a gun at me? I'm a citizen here. I'm one of you. Are you really going to shoot your own people? Just badass. So it's always a woman, I feel in times like these where they're the bravest and the only ones that...
Oh, absolutely.
But there were a couple of other TikToks that I saw of people who... Because 50% of their population are men, obviously, and they're mandatory conscripted for 2 years. So after they turn 18, they have to go serve in the Korean military for at least 2 years. And they learn, certain tactics there in self-defense. So as soon as a gun got pointed into his face, or a hand got shoved in his face, he rotated him around and pushed him the other direction. And the guy's what am I doing? Anyway,
yeah.
So
That's
it was actually pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Sovereign, what did you have?
So have y'all heard of Sophie Rain?
Oh, is she that OnlyFans girl?
Yes.
Yeah, she's all over my Twitter right now.
Is she the one that's famous because she looks really young?
She was just famous recently because she posted her earnings and it was 40-something million.
Oh, okay.
So from what I'm gathering, she is 20, but she looks very young, 14 or 16 or something.
Yeah.
I think she's pretty. I mean, I think she's pretty. But anyways, so apparently she was having a conversation. I can send it to you. She was having a conversation with a woman, and they were comparing how much money they made on OnlyFans. When they asked her how much money she made, it came out to something around $4 million a month or something like that. I don't know exactly, but allegedly the total was about $42 million in 1 year. So since last Thanksgiving. And everybody has been outraged because they're she looks like a kid, and how are all these men paying for this? And I'm getting a kick out of it because, first of all, you go, girl. Get your bag. Right. What I know so far is that she doesn't take her clothes off or anything. I think the most that she gets in front of a camera and just dances, just like everybody does on TikTok. From what I understand, I've never seen her OnlyFans, but that's what people are saying. They're saying her OnlyFans is not even overly sexually explicit. It's just her kind of getting in front of the camera and just doing little casual dances and just moving around. Cause she has a very nice body. She does. It is what it is. And also, I think the most that they say she's ever she'll have on a bikini, which is not that big of a deal. Cause she'd be at a pool or a hot tub or something. She'll just kind of like dance, and it's not even from what I seen. It wasn't even anything that bad.
What do you think the men are paying for?
They're paying for her. She looks very young. This is just my take.
Mm-hmm.
To me, she's pretty. She's very pretty. She looks very young, but she has the body of like a 25-year-old. And I think that is the allure. I believe they said she's 20, but the allure is that she looks young, but she has like this like nice body. And, you know, the whole thing with the OnlyFans is that guys typically pay for fantasy, right? So it's something about seeing a beautiful woman and being able to DM, because a lot of her money came from DMs, apparently, like subscriptions and then DMs. So it's something about being able to DM this woman. Because I think people wonder like, why would guys pay for this when there's women out here who will do it for free? But the thing is that I think it boils down to like there's no challenge when the woman is right in front of you, so to speak, right? It's like there's something intriguing about seeing this woman online or whatever and being able to talk to her versus just scrolling through some kind of Pornhub and seeing women and you can't talk to them directly. You can't like have any conversation with them. They don't know you exist. Some guys are willing to pay for that fantasy experience.
So that personal element.
Yeah. And unfortunately, 90-something or whatever it was, 89% of the guys on there are married. Oh, so that was another thing. I kind of enjoy rubbing that in people's faces, though. Because they be those, I hate to say that, but it's like, listen, at the end of the day, they be on there mad, like, she's a tramp and she's a whore. And it's like, but y'all's husbands are the ones paying for it. So at the end of the day, like, dude, I did a video about it earlier and I'm like, I'm not mad at her for getting her money. The only pushback I would give her is I wouldn't have told nobody nothing. I wouldn't have told nobody how much money I made because that just makes her a target. That's the only pushback. Like my whole thing is she's not actually having sex with anybody. She's not, people don't have access to her. I don't know, but from what I'm getting, that's the case. And if she's making money just from doing little random TikTok videos, you know what I mean? Everybody on TikTok is doing it for free. And she's getting paid millions of dollars.
And a lot of men got mad and they were like, we're gonna take your money away. Like I saw men like reacting on Twitter or whatever, being like, we're gonna make sure this is illegal. We're gonna make OnlyFans illegal now because they got so mad that she was making money.
I don't see that happening.
No, for sure. I'm just saying they're
the ones paying for it.
Exactly. I also wonder.
They're also the ones that are like, we should tax these prostitutes. And then that's the whole reason why OnlyFans was created was because before OnlyFans, it was more like platform based. So like on chat rooms and things like that, like webcams or like through other websites that were just basically selling something similar. But then they weren't really necessarily getting taxed on it. So then they wanted to punish these women and be able to, have that power over them. So then they created OnlyFans because it has a specific place for you to put this tax form on there. So you do get taxed if you do OnlyFans and if you do other platforming sites now too because of this. So,
fun fact, OnlyFans was created by a Christian man.
Why am I not surprised?
It wasn't created as like that. It was really created as more of like a Patreon kind of thing, and it was supposed to be. But once it took off as that, they didn't mind. It didn't morally phase them at all. They just kept going. It
surprised me one bit.
Yeah.
Not at all.
I wonder if part of her appeal too, because men are so like, they're very lemming-like, when they see a lot of men doing something, they're like, wait, should I be doing this too? And I wonder if like once she caught on, a lot of men were like, oh, like other dudes like her, so I like her too. Like,
probably.
I feel like they kind of put, people that are doing well towards the top or like whatever. I don't really know how it works, but, there's like sense. Trending creators. And I feel like men are just bandwagon fans of everything.
Oh, and really quickly, the women, oh God, the responses from some of the women were like, it was like Stop. They're like, she's not even that pretty and she's a whore and she's whoring herself out. And I'm like, listen, the respectability politics won't get you anywhere. So at the end of the day, I just don't see the point in hating on someone for making easy money like that. Like, I'm all for it. Now, don't get me wrong. I think women should be safe and watch your surroundings and all of that, because guys can be crazy. But at the same time, I don't understand the mindset of hating on somebody when you really could just cheer them on and wish them the best. Like, I don't get it. I just hope she's safe. That's all. That's it. I just hope she's safe and people don't have easy access to her. That's it. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, for sure. And my question is like, who is like the whore if... You know what I mean? Like, she's just putting out content.
Exactly.
Again, like you said, no different than what anybody is doing on TikTok. And it's the men that are coming to her.
The thing is that even if she wasn't on OnlyFans and she was just, because she has like 9 million followers on TikTok, by the way. I found that out earlier today because I kind of like went snooping or whatever. If she's on TikTok just doing her little dances with her friends, men are already objectifying her anyway. Exactly. just by existing. So my thing is, she took it and capitalized on it and said, well, hey, if they're going to stare at me and objectify me, I might as well get paid for it on OnlyFans. And it worked. I don't see what the problem is. But I just hate that women, some women are, trying to say, oh, well, men won't take her seriously and she's whoring herself out and whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop. And I'm like, it's just jealousy at the end of the day.
What's more serious than money?
That's what I'm saying.
Serious,
all money ain't good money. Money is money. Dude.
Money is money. Yeah, tell that to your favorite billionaire.
And also, I don't know who's least respected, the OnlyFans creators or their wives.
That's exactly.
The husbands are the ones that are humiliating y'all.
And that was my point. I'm like, y'all are talking about carrying yourself with class and she doesn't have any class and all this. And I'm like, y'all are doing everything right, quote unquote, allegedly. And you don't got $42 million. You're doing it all for free at the cost of what, like, and
male approval.
For male approval. And y'all, while you're sitting around pining for male approval, your boyfriend, baby daddy, or husband is literally lining that woman's pockets. Yep. He's sneaking off to the bathroom to whack off to one of her videos, and you're like wrangling the kids and thinking you're better because you have class and you're not a whore and you're not objectifying yourself. Girl, please. If y'all don't go somewhere, that really irritated me. I'm like, leave that damn girl alone. Like, leave her alone.
Talk to your men. Talk to the men, because I love that Share 7 clip where she's like, somebody like said in the chat, a prostitute or a whore or whatever, that's like the lowest rung of humanity. And she was like, no, it's not. It's the man who pays her, because he has to pay her to be in her presence. If she's the lowest of the low, then he is lower still, because he has to pay her to be in her presence.
Absolutely.
So who's really the lowest of the low? It's y'all's men. And it's like, that's what you need to be more worried about controlling rather than women. Because if everybody just stopped giving these OnlyFans creators money, then we wouldn't be having this conversation.
See, that's the cognitive dissonance at play on the woman's part, because you can talk all that nonsense, but at the end of the day, you're doing all of that because in their minds, this is what's going to get you a husband. You have to carry yourself a certain way in order for you to get a husband. If you're out here doing what Sophie Rain is doing, no man is ever going to take you seriously. And it's just like, but your husband don't take you seriously because your husband is literally
he's humiliating
making her rich, dude. What part of this do y'all not get? I'm going to keep hammering on that point until women get it. Because it's like, at the end of the day, your loving husband who took vows, or your baby daddy who pumped you up with 5 kids or whatever, they're the ones making her rich. Why do y'all have smoke for these women when you should have smoke for the person who took vows, or who lied and told you he was going to be faithful to you, or whatever, who lied and said he's going to get help for his porn addiction or whatever? Why are you not taking your anger out on him? That's the part I don't get. And I'm gonna keep harping on that until women get it through their heads.
It's like, it's so embarrassing, because like, if I caught my partner doing all that behind my back and like caught them paying for OnlyFans, like, I'd be so embarrassed. Like, I don't even think I could post that anywhere. even on Reddit or Twitter and be some sob story and be like, I caught my husband doing like selling or buying
Not the
porn.
sob
And
story.
yeah, it's like, it's so repetitive. Like every time I scroll on Reddit, it's always one of those horror stories of like this woman being married to a man for like 10 plus years. And then she's just now reckoning with the fact that her husband's probably had a porn addiction this whole time. And it's just kind of getting worse because it's been sliding for the last 10 years. Like maybe it started with just Pornhub, but now it's like escalating to like buying services from a prostitute. And that's where you draw the line. Like, and I'm not trying to victim blame. By no means am I saying, that it's her fault. But it comes to a certain point in time where it's like, you got to look at these red flags and take them at face value. Because like one thing always leads to another in regards to, porn addiction in men.
Yes. I think that cannot be overstated enough. That porn is not a normal thing. Like, this is not me knocking on the creators or whatever, but my thing is we were never meant to have that. When they have brought porn to countries where like people don't, or when they have brought just internet to countries where people have never been able to access the internet, within like 72 hours, all the men were addicted to porn. And that was all the only thing that they were watching, looking at on the internet, because it is not normal. It triggers your dopamine receptors so much. It is like a literal drug, and it is not like conducive to a normal human experience the way that most men are consuming it, because it's really hard to stop. It's free. It's all there right in front of you. And it releases a lot of dopamine, and you can waste a lot of time. It's not even like video games where you have to invest in a video game system, buy the video game, etc. No, it's just on your phone. You just go in, you type it in, it's free. If you spent your whole life trying to watch all of it, you wouldn't be able to. And that's not normal.
Did y'all ever find out about the turkey situation?
The what now?
So we did find out. So what they were doing in that one particular butterball turkey plant, the turkeys, I'm so sorry to report, were not yet frozen or dead.
They were
alive. Yes, they were alive. And the men were like sneaking off to like assault them with like their fingers. Like they were putting their fingers inside the turkeys.
What?
And humping them, and like, I don't know.
Are we going to post a source for this?
I hate I asked. I wasn't expecting that.
Yes. And this is like a resurfaced video. So PETA actually reported on this a while ago. And a lot of people are saying like, oh, well, PETA, like they're framing it like whatever, PETA's crazy. Yes, sure, they can be crazy, but they have video. They have people on camera saying that that people are doing this. And so this all came out in apparently like 2006, but I just don't assume it's gotten better since then. I don't think that like the loosening of all those regulations, 8 years ago has really helped. So if anything, it's probably worse now.
I was asking as a joke. I didn't know it was gonna.
I actually just pulled up the article. Should I just read this little snippet?
Yeah, sure. And then we'll have the article in the episode
notes
description as well. Yeah.
People for Ethical Treatment of Animals resurfaced a 20-year-old video on Instagram last week that accuses Butterball employees of sexually abusing turkeys, and it's causing a stir online. Do you know what happened to your Butterball turkey before they were killed? PETA wrote in the description of a video posted to its Instagram on Friday. In the video, a person whose identity is unknown accuses Butterball workers of sexually abusing the animals that Butterball slaughtered and sold to the public. Commenters on the post were quick to share concern for the turkeys. What can be done about this? One follower replied. The group seemingly posted the video ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday, but Butterball told to USA Today Tuesday that the video is from 2006. Damn. Okay, so yeah, that's that snippet.
Wow.
So yeah, that's the bottom of it. Men have found it every time. They find the bottom, the rock bottom of things.
That's terrible.
And people, I don't know if we should talk about this here or on another episode, but like it's not limited to just turkeys. I'm sorry to say.
Oh, I know.
Because like there are reports of men doing terrible things to like orangutans and like lizards, like those Gila monster lizards that live in like South Asia or other places, and they've like gang raped this animal and it's a
Wow.
lizard, and this thing can like kill you. That doesn't stop them. Like, I don't understand.
And then they cooked it and ate it afterwards. Like the depravity is actually off the charts. Like it's off the page because you can't. Why would you do that? That's disgusting. Are you not grossed out with yourself? Like, where is the post nut clarity at all? Y'all did
The
that and
post-nut
then
clarity.
cooked it and ate it.
Think of all the diseases too. Like,
That's why we have them. That's why we have them. I'm
Yeah,
so serious.
I agree.
And they were pimping out a monkey. That's just one of the stories. Yeah, we're probably gonna have to be its own episode at this point because,
yeah.
well, speaking of cooking and things like that, let's dive into our Tradwife segment after this break. All right, and we're back to talk about Tradwives, the rise of Tradwives. I'm dying to talk about this, y'all. We should have seen it coming all along, in my opinion, and even I didn't as obsessed with the content as I have been, and as obsessed with this like religious structure that has sort of even grown outside of the religious structure. You know, at this point, a lot of women that want to be Tradwives are not even religious anymore. And as much as that content was starting to sort of bubble up to the surface, I still thought we were going to girl boss our way out of it. And we just didn't. I feel like all of this, the rise in that, traditional femininity, Tradwife kind of content should have been our canary in the mine, right? That something is coming down the pike. And I feel like a lot of us missed that.
Yeah, it's getting pretty regressive. I don't think it's a coincidence that we're seeing a rise in this type of content because it's very similar. During the Reagan era of like the 80s, like that was also like a very traditional rise in trad stuff. The origination of it was probably like 1940s, 50s, 60s. And then for a while that stopped. And then by the 1980s, when Reagan came into power, his whole thing was traditional family values. We're going to put God, family, country back into our values. And so we're going to put Bibles back in schools. We're going to punish the gay people with the whole like AIDS crisis thing that happened during his reign of terror. And we're going to make America great again by having all these homophobic policies and all these misogynistic rhetoric. And so that's, I don't know, it's kind of scary seeing how time is just like a flat circle and we're just always kind of repeating the past because we never learned from it. So I don't know if it's like a government incentive that these people are getting like paid on the side to be pushing this type of content, or if it's just happening because it's the latest, type of trend to be pushed and kind of gaining traction and attention because this type of stuff is rewarded by the winning side per se. And as far as our politics
I think that's
goes.
a great point. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a
So-
combination of both.
Yeah. And because like I think that the women are getting this sort of like positive attention from men and they're loving this negative attention from women like us who are saying like y'all are, delusional. But so they love this type of like rage engagement from women and this like positive attention from men. They just kind of get the best of both worlds. So I'm not sure of how to proceed in a way that we could, reach them and tell them, that like this type of stuff was all part of our past for a reason. And it's just,
Exactly.
it's the lack of education for me, honestly.
I was going to say it's kind of a canon event, but it's also happening at a time when the presence of girls on social media has not been studied very well. And I feel like as millennial or like even Gen X women, we kind of thought that the problem has been solved and like dealt with, and we've all moved on and we're all ready to girl boss our way as close to the sun as possible. And I feel like we kind of took our foot off the gas with that a little bit. And girls got on the internet and were exposed to so much misogyny, so much male gaze, so much, like we still have so many beauty standards online, and they were radicalized in the wrong direction. I don't know if y'all agree with that, but I just feel like that wasn't so much of a concern for like millennial women, even mothers raising their daughters today. It's kind of like you just assume that your daughter knows that she is, equal and that she shouldn't have to take shit from men. But men online are men online. Like they've been doing the same thing online. And so when you're not constantly reinforcing this message that, girls are not in any way inferior, that they are equal, that they deserve all the same rights and treatment and all that, when we took our foot off the gas for a little bit, this rhetoric crept right back in.
Yeah, and I actually want to take a pause here and say that I'm not sure if, this message even applies the same anymore in terms of like equality, because we are very much not equal anymore. And I think having this whole message for, equality, for feminism that we've had, because like we've had this, feminism equals equality mentality for the past like 25 years, and it's never been more regressive in my opinion. I think the new message for feminism should just be our liberalization and freeing ourselves from these, these systems that have kept us so oppressed for so long, whether that be like the pay gap or that be these beauty standards or...
Well, see, that's the thing. I think because of the rise of feminism, then you have the rise of the Tradwife content, right? Because it's just another way for patriarchy to push us back in our place, right? Where we're supposed to be, as I like to say, barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. So if you got all these so-called modern women that are wanting to have a career and wanting to take care of ourselves and provide for ourselves, and some of us don't want to go the traditional, I want to get married and I want to have a bunch of kids route, the number one way to help, because there's going to be a lot of things put in place to push women back to a time where we didn't have any rights and we were subjugated. But one of the things is to push this content because it offers this, I guess, false security of like the way things used to be. And it was so simple back then. And women, you don't have to get out here and be a girl boss and have it all. You can just sit at home and bake cookies and fold socks. And it's easier to just find a Prince Charming to take care of you. And that's why I think it's appealing to some women, because they're like, oh, that sounds like that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to submit to my husband. I'm supposed to do these things. And I think that's the reason why a lot of them are getting caught up in it. But the funny thing about this content is that we're only seeing the push really coming from super young women. The older women are not speaking at all. And the ones that do speak, they are totally against it, because they've already been down this road. Many of them have been married. Many of them have been married for decades, and they will get on social media and warn the younger women, you think this is what you want. This ain't what you want, because your ability, there was one lady, and I can't think of her name right now, but she said your ability to feed yourself and your kids is solely based on your husband's attraction to you. The moment he decides he doesn't like you anymore or doesn't want you or want somebody younger, your ass is grass. Like, it's over. And the ones that come out and talk about it have been through it already. But of course, the younger women are like, oh, well, that's her. Those women. It won't be me, and of course, in 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, 15 years, 20 years, they'll be on TikTok with the same story. I never thought he would do this to me. I can't believe it. And he left me with nothing. And he has all this money. And he hired the best lawyers. And he got custody of the kids because he didn't want to pay me child support. Same story.
And now I can't find a job. Now I got to go to the food bank. And my kids, and we will definitely put some of those creators in the episode description as well, so that y'all can go check them out and hear their stories. And just before we go any further, I did want to give the definition of a tradwife, and just in case, I'm sure everybody's heard of it, I'm sure everybody's familiar, but I feel like the definition has changed a little bit. So to me, growing up, a tradwife was almost always part of like a religion, like a Christianity or whatever, or just some other type of organized religion. It was a woman that stays home, she has no income, and basically in exchange for part of her husband's income, she basically keeps the house. She's a homemaker. And that includes, taking care of the kids. There's a special emphasis on child rearing, but there's also that emphasis of cooking, cleaning, where your husband doesn't have to lift a finger around the house because his contribution is supposedly that he goes to work and works really hard every day to quote unquote provide for you. And I feel like the thing that's changed recently is that we have separated it from religion, which I never thought would happen. To me, those two things are so inextricably intertwined that it's actually been crazy to me to see it unmerging from the religious side. And so I want to hear y'all's take on that. Like, why do you think that's happened? How did it escape the confines of religion? Because I've only ever been exposed to this at church. In fact, to me, as a Slavic woman, American women, I've never thought of them as tradwives, because to me, it's like, you're not a tradwife because you can go out and get a job. And most American women, to me, were not, like, they worked, like, they were not in that, especially secular American women, just were never in that mindset. So why do y'all think we're seeing this rise even in secular areas where women are like, oh, I want to be like Nora Smith. I want to be a tradwife.
That's the crazy part. Nora Smith and women like her technically are not tradwives, because my understanding is tradwives don't work. Tradwives have nothing. Tradwives don't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. Tradwives don't have bank accounts. They don't have careers. They are at home, barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen.
Right.
Baking cookies and folding socks, like I always say. So that's the thing. So the fact that they're trying to modernize it, but then try to make it seem like, oh, these are they're not tradwives. A tradwife,
yes.
And the women who think they want to be tradwives understand that means you don't. You want to go back to a time where you have no rights, like you are the sole property of your husband, and that's it. You are nothing more than a stay-at-home homemaker wife and mother, not a career woman, not a social media influencer, not like none of that. Your place is at home. And I'm like, do you really want that? As far as the religion part goes, I don't really have the answer to that. I just think that more and more people are just moving away from religion in general without even thinking of like the tradwife stuff. A lot of people are starting to come to the realization that they don't believe in God, or they don't believe that the stuff in the Bible ever happened or whatever. And the world, this country in particular, but the world are becoming more secular. And it's like, oh, I can have this tradwife lifestyle and do all this without, the whole God thing. Because, I don't know if God exists. I'm agnostic, or whatever. I don't know exactly what it is, but I just think as society progresses in some ways, because we're regressing in other ways, but as we progress, the natural thing for most people as we become more educated is to get away from the religion. But you still want to hang on to the whole tradwife lifestyle, and the man is supposed to be the head and he's supposed to be a protector and provider and all this stuff. You want to keep, it's just like a lot of religious people do cherry pick out the Bible when they want to.
I was going to say that's
So
just a patriarchal concept. So it's like we can have patriarchy without religion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that makes sense. I also wonder if, the whole girl boss push, 50-50 feminism push kind of turned women off from even wanting to be a career woman. Because as you were talking about that, I was like, well, what about the women that would say, I don't want a career? What about I just want a family? How am I supposed to do that? What if I don't want to split my time between my career and my family? What if I think that having kids is a job in and of itself, and I just want a man to support me in that? And I feel like because the government is not involved in that whatsoever, because there's no stipend for a mother, there's no stipend for a parent, a lot of women are like, well, I physically don't think I can do both, right? And at a certain point, because we view women's salaries as like optional and or expendable, a lot of women think of daycare as something that is just covered by their paycheck. And so what they'll say is, well, basically I'm exchanging daycare for my paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, why isn't your husband paying for it? Like, why are we thinking of it in those terms, right? That's interesting.
Exactly.
But also, they do kind of have a point, right? Where it's like, okay, so I'm going to get a job. The job's going to pay me, $30K a year. Let's just say that, even if, you want to be a teacher or something like that, or you want, because the other part is you're not going to get a high-powered job as a mother, because a lot of people discriminate, based on that. So you're gonna get like one of those starter jobs, flexible hours, where you can take off so you can pick up your kid from school, whatever. So you're dealing with a job that's paying you 35, 40, maybe 50K. And then most of that goes to daycare. So before you go to work, you are dropping your kids off at daycare, most likely as a mother. But before you do that, you're also getting up, getting yourself ready, getting the kids ready, God forbid, getting your husband ready. But most women are doing that. Then you get in the car, you load up all your kids in the car, you drop them off at daycare, you go to work. So now you have dropped off, a lot of women, I'm not a mother, but a lot of women obviously love their kids to death. Okay. Like they describe it as, this is my heart walking outside my body, all these kinds of things. And so now you're dropping your children that you made off at daycare, and you're going to work for the next 8 hours. The daycare charges you $3,000 a month based on how many kids you have in there. And then you come home, right? You pick up the kids, you come home, you start, unpacking all their things. You start on dinner, you start on laundry, you start on getting ready for the next day. And then your husband rolls in from work, is like, what's for dinner? Why are the kids being so loud? Let me go sit on the couch. Why are you bothering me? Da, da, da. So you're doing all of it by yourself. And it's like at a certain point, I can't really blame women for being like, no, you go to work. You go to work. And I will just stay home and do everything else, because I'd have to do that regardless.
Yeah.
And being a career woman just means I have to expend 2-3 times the energy that I would be having to expend if I were just staying home with the kids. Because then I could at least do it on my own time, on my own schedule. I don't have to drop them off to daycare. I actually get to spend time with them. Because a lot of people don't think about that. They're like, oh, just drop them off at daycare. I have worked with little kids, and I really do enjoy them so much. I think kids are amazing. I'm not child-free because I don't like kids. I think kids are incredible. And like day to day, I think they're a lot of fun to spend time with, especially if you have a routine, you live in a safe neighborhood, you can, take them out for enrichment activities, you can take them places, you're not so financially like tight that you can't do that. You can have a nice little life. You know what I mean? Just you, your kids, your husband comes home from work. Like a lot of people think of this as this idyllic situation.
Right.
And compared to the alternative, I'm just saying, is kind of not that bad, because you're thinking about, well, what career also, first of all, if you have kids and then you get a job, what is that job? What is that career, quote unquote? Because most women's careers don't recover from having kids.
Nope.
It's like one of those like flat line things, and it stagnates.
And understanding all of that is a huge part of why I chose not to have kids myself, because the amount of stress that I would be under financially, mentally, spiritually. I remember in the 90s and going into the 2000s, I used to watch a lot of talk shows like Oprah and all of them. And the biggest thing back then was, well, can a woman have it all? Yes, she can have it all. She can have the husband and the kids and the career and all. And I used to just sit there and think, like, why would you want to have it all? Like, I never understood that. That sounds stressful. And I remember Oprah Winfrey saying that she would not be Oprah. She wouldn't have been as successful as she was had she had children, because she didn't want to do both. Something would suffer. Betty White said the same thing. She's like, if I had children or if I had a career, one of those things were going to suffer. And I chose to just choose my career because I understand how much time, energy, and effort and money and all of that and sacrifice goes into children. And then my career would suffer. Or if I put everything into my career, then my children would suffer. So it's just easier to just make the decision to not have kids. And I remember when I heard Oprah say that, and I remember when I heard Betty White say that, who I love Betty White, by the way.
Yeah.
I always wanted to meet her. But anyways, when I heard them say that, it resonated with me. I'm like, yes, I get it. I'm the same way. I'm like, I'm not finna be that stressed. I'm not working myself into exhaustion like that. It's not worth it. And I'm also completely like so against depending on a man for the rest of my life. Like that is another huge part as to why I can't do it. I can't. Like I'm itching thinking about it.
Well, because
like,
that's
I would
the
have
other
to have
part.
my own money. I can't.
Yes.
So many women do that and
Yes.
end up in a situation financially when or if the relationship or marriage comes to an end, or if he's cheating, or if he suddenly dies, or whatever, and you have nothing to fall back on. And then a lot of these women end up having to go back to the job, like you said, only making $30,000 a year because they gave up all their good years being a mom. As far as the good years, it's like where they could have been building a career. Nobody's going to want to hire too many mothers, especially with young kids. And then if you don't have any skills on top of that, because you've been a mom for the last 10 or 15 years.
You have skills, just like people don't see it as skills.
Yeah, they don't translate into the real world. Like learning, like I'm not trying to be funny, but like baking cookies and folding socks doesn't translate in the real world if you're trying to be like a marketing executive or even working. I mean, you would have to take a low paying job somewhere like working at Walmart or something. I took all of that into account, and that's why I couldn't do it.
I actually think that when you're, single momming it out and you're doing, like, you're responsible for your entire household. So you have to do all the planning, all the prepping, all the cooking. That actually does kind of translate into project coordination.
Of course,
and
just
project
men will
management
never see it as
skills.
that.
They'll
But
never look at it that way.
You could definitely like finesse the hell out of your resume to say all sorts of good shit though, if you know how. Especially, and also like ChatGPT exists. So if you can figure out a way to lie on that using ChatGPT, go for it. Like that's actually my advice for women who are coming out of this, daydream of being a trad wife, and you're kind of like waking up in the real world and learning that like all the shit that you thought you were doing before just isn't working out now. And you're trying to get back into working, and you're trying to go back into, setting yourself up instead of like having the man set you up. These are things that you can do. Like definitely just like fudge your resume, lie on that resume. Like I cannot emphasize that enough. Like I feel like nobody got anywhere by being 100% truthful on their resume. Somebody's always like kind of
that's true.
Changed things around, or even like sprinkled in like a few white lies in there about like 10%. Just do it in a way that sells yourself, because all a resume is just a piece of paper that is selling yourself and why you're a good fit for a certain company or fit for a role to do. And if you can do that with your resume, go for it.
I agree.
Absolutely. I also want to talk about the fact that Tradwifery is typically viewed as like this very feminine thing. The sort of draw for it is, oh, well, I'm just a girl. I don't want to pay bills. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to sit in meetings. I don't think that's for women. Like women shouldn't have to do that.
I actually have a lot of patience when it comes to those young girls that are like 19 or 20 that say things like that. They're like, we don't need feminism. And
I don't.
Feminism was a mistake. And I don't want to work anymore. Like, just dumb things like that and blah, blah, blah. Because these ideas were so obviously fed to them, like by their surroundings, whether that was online or living in like religious communities or growing up with men or all of the above, really. Like that is deeply conditioned into them. And that can be so hard to unlearn. So when I ask, young teenagers why they don't want to identify as feminists, their responses often kind of reflect misconceptions and misinformation about feminism, like what it has or hasn't done for women, and it actually has made women worse and blah, blah, blah. Many, they just seem to view feminism as tied to like a victim mentality, which they resist because they don't want to see themselves as victims. Like accepting victimhood can feel like admitting weakness. So for some, rejecting feminism is tied to a belief that personal responsibility could prevent harm. They think that if I'm smart and careful, if I avoid bars, don't get drunk, or stay home playing video games, tee not like other girls, then nothing bad will happen to me. But this mindset can lead to just unfair judgment of other women and implying that harm only happens to those who make bad choices. It's an easier narrative to accept than confronting the uncomfortable truth that blame lies with perpetrators and not victims.
Not to mention that as a tradwife, your husband can abuse the fuck out of you, and a lot
They
of them do.
oftentimes they do.
Yeah. Read Tia Leving's memoir, and she was very much a tradwife, and she followed all the rules. She did everything right, and her husband was a literal monster to her anyway, because that's what these men get off on. They get off on being able to control women. And that's why they look for the young women, and that's why they say that they like submissive women, and they try to feed it to us through this lens of the male gaze of like, we'll like you better if you stay home and cook and clean. Like, that's more appealing. And since we haven't completely gotten rid of that lens, a lot of young girls are very enamored by that. But I just want to say that as far as being like feminine goes, Tradwifery is not it. So if you are trying, it comes from this deep misunderstanding of feminine energy, femininity, masculinity. Tradwifery, and I will die on this hill every single day of my life, is deeply, deeply, deeply masculine. If you're a tradwife, you are not a feminine woman. You are a workhorse. Okay, let's get that straight. You are working as hard or harder than a man, because
for no money.
Worked for no money, imagine. Yes, so that your man can come home and hold money over your head, right? And say that, oh, I work my ass off, like as if you don't. And then you ask him, well, let's trade places. And he'll be like, no, I don't know how to do that stuff. You're good at that stuff. I could never.
Or the house just goes to shit.
Absolutely. And they don't actually do any of it, because they think that tradwifery is like this like feminine pursuit, and you just bake cookies whenever you want, when in reality, kids will only thrive if there is routine. Kids, I taught preschoolers, okay? I tried, to sort of play it by ear. I tried to be like, maybe we don't need to stick to as consistent of a routine. No, that everything will go to shit if you get off of your routine. Okay, like that is very important for kids to know what time they usually wake up, what time they have breakfast, what time they have their nap, what time they go on their walk. All of this, I will repeat, is deeply masculine endeavors. You are not in your feminine, nor should you be. I don't believe that you should be in your feminine as a woman. But I'm saying like a lot of women see this as this like very airy, light, beautiful pursuit, when in reality, you are going to be on your hands and knees, scrubbing vomit, poop, changing diapers. You're going to be, scrubbing the toilet. You're going to be washing dishes. You're going to be cooking, cleaning, organizing. You are working. You are not, this is not leisure time.
And it's nonstop. It's all day, every day.
24/7.
The kids don't stop pooping. The kids don't stop messing up. The kids don't stop eating. They don't
There's
stop.
No sick leave
they
or
don't
sick
stop.
Pay.
They don't stop. It's
no vacation
constant.
times.
Oh my God.
You can't quit that job.
And even when you're on vacation, you're still, managing your kids and planning activities for your kids and doing these activities for kids, with kids. Like, that's just nonstop. Like, that's your life.
And that's another thing, too, I wanted to add was, like y'all were saying, another part of why a lot of the young women don't want to identify as a feminist is because it's, like you say, it's a turnoff to men. When it's all said and done, they don't want to be seen or known as a feminist because they know men won't like them. And it really just boils down to being male identified. And it's the same thing that goes with the women who are like, I don't want to be a strong, independent woman. I'm tired of that, because they hear men say, I don't want no strong, independent woman. So now you don't want to identify with something that you probably are deep down, just at your core. You're just a strong woman. You're strong-minded. You have your stuff together. You can take care of yourself if need be. But these women are literally playing damsels in distress because they're trying to appeal to men. And the one thing I cannot stand is for a woman to have her life going on, have a degree, have a career, and just throw it all away, or drop out of school while you're like getting ready, like the ballerina farm girl did. Where she was almost done with school and he forced her to get pregnant like 6 months before she was to graduate and she never went back. Stupid shit like that. I don't like that. Ladies, if y'all are in school or working on a degree or whatever you're doing, starting a business, don't give that shit up for no man. If he's the right man for you, he would not ask you to get rid of anything that you worked hard for, to walk away from something that matters to you. That is a way that they control you and keep you down. So when they start whooping your ass or cheating on you or whatever, you can't go anywhere. That is the number one reason why. That is the number one reason why most men want you to sit at home barefoot and pregnant, is because you can't go anywhere when they turn up and switch up on you, which most of them end up doing. Not all of them are going to do that. Some of them, there are some guys out there that, they're like, yeah, I just want you to stay home with the kids and, it'll be better for them. I do believe those guys exist and they don't have any ill will. They just want their wife to be comfortable or whatever. The problem is those men are very far and few in between. That is the issue. The vast majority of them are just trying to control you.
And they're also not exempt from like natural consequences, like a lot of these men work manual labor jobs. You can't do that forever. Or
Absolutely.
You're not going to have the same level of income. You can also always get hit by a bus. You can also always become sick. God forbid, knock on wood, everything. But that does not, being a provider does not preclude you from getting cancer, does not preclude you from getting some other type of disease, injury, car accident, walking out the street. Becoming paralyzed. Absolutely. I know a guy who was a provider for his family and he was like showing off at a party and dove into a shallow pool.
Oh my God.
And that's it. That was that.
He died?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Eventually. And it took a very long time and a lot of medical bills. So he became like the opposite of a provider.
Absolutely.
Overnight.
Yeah. There's 2 guys at my job. One of them stepped out of the truck wrong. And now he's forced to, they're trying to get him out of work. Like, they don't want him to come back. He's a provider for his wife. Now, I don't know what's going to happen. And then another guy just had heart surgery. So he's going to be out for however long. And I'm not going to go into detail. But there's a chance that neither one of them are coming back. So now what? You know what I mean? And those guys have been providers and truck drivers for a long time. Very nice guys, both of them. But at the end of the day, like you said, you're not immune from accidents or anything from happening. So that's why no matter what happens, women need to have their own resources just in case life starts lifing. And life will always life. That's what life is going to do. So you really just got to be, it's smart. And for those of you who have kids, just think about your kids. Like, do you ever want to be in a position where you can't feed them because you have nothing of your own? Do you ever want to be in that situation? Always think of your kids too. And all men are not the enemy. It's just your husband is probably not the enemy. So I'm not saying they are all just evil and they're just, but it's life be lifing at the end of the day. You gotta protect yourself and your best interest and the best interest of your kids. And that's all I preach, and I'm gonna always preach that. Have your own. You don't necessarily have to touch that money that you got in that hidden account somewhere, up yonder. But in case something happens, you have that. What did they call it on TikTok a couple years ago? A to-go bag or a just in case bag or whatever. Yeah, you just never know, and you want to be in a position where you are all set. Because I'm woman centered. I care about women, and I care about women caring about their kids, and that's just it.
And I think like the man that you have kids with, if he really wants to be like a good provider, like he will look out for that too and like put money aside for you or like give you your own, spending or saving or whatever money because he realizes that what you do is labor too and you should be paid for it. You should have something to show for it because if God forbid anything happens to him or if he, ever is like, okay, like, sorry, I can't do this anymore, at least he will have set you up. Because now that women have gone out to market and basically, said, okay, how much is it going to cost for somebody else to watch my kids? Mind you, in a room full of like 40, 50 children. So they're not getting one-on-one attention. They're not getting, the best kind of care that they would with a one-on-one parent. in the comfort of their own home. They're always coming home sick. They're always that. And that shit costs you $30,000 a year. So now that you women have gone out and been like, so what would it cost for somebody else to do my job? It's a lot of money. What would it cost for your husband to have somebody cook him a meal every night in the comfort of his own home?
A chef.
Exactly. A personal chef. That costs a lot of money, right? So all of these things, and it's like if your husband really is a good guy, he's going to see that, and he's not going to hoard all the money and be like, oh, well, I'm the provider, I decide what happens. It's like, no, because you're also a provider as a woman. You provided him the children. You provide a clean house. You provide a home-cooked meal. You're also a provider. So he needs to pay you for that. It shouldn't just be up in the air like, oh, well, as long as he's alive and making money, where's that savings account? Where is that, how is he reimbursing your labor that he would otherwise not be able to achieve without you?
They're not going to do
They're
it.
not.
Most of them
Exactly.
are not. And that's the whole point of making the women stay at home.
Mhm.
They don't want to give you extra money. They don't want you to be able to walk out if you need to go. That's the whole point. I really hate that so many women are going to find this out the hard way.
They lack the perspective that they won't be in their early 20s forever. Like,
Oh my God.
but they also don't want to listen to Tradwives on TikTok or any other platform that have gone down this hole before and paid the price, because they just have a delusion that they're somehow different from these other old hag Tradwives of the past, and their situation won't be the same as hers. So, because surely they won't make the same mistakes as her. Surely everything is going to be different.
And not all men.
Right?
Yeah.
But really, like, the only way to be different from them is that he puts properties and assets and businesses in your name. He doesn't make you sign prenups, and actually helps with the childcare and the
Absolutely.
chores, as well as his job secure. Like,
Facts.
if you don't have any of that, well, I guess they'll find out. Like, it just, like, if by now, like, let's say you've been married for a year and y'all started a business together, is your name on it? Like, you have to make sure your name is on that, because
That's the real 50-50. And also,
Absolutely
wait till they
it is.
find out. You don't have to make a mistake for all that to happen to you. You just have to get old.
Oh my God. I'm so glad you said that.
Because that's really it. Or get cancer or get some other kind of a disease.
And I wanted to add more to the point why, young girls aren't really identifying as feminists. And I really think it's just because that it's painful to be this much aware of, the mistreatment and these systems of oppression that are like hundreds of years old. Like, it sucks to know, like, on a fundamental and personal level, that most people do not regard you as much more than like an object. And there's actually a quote by Jessa Crispin, who wrote this thing about how, like, why I don't identify as a feminist memoir. It's always easier to find your sense of value by demeaning another's value. It is easier to define yourself as not that, rather than do an actual accounting of your own qualities and put them on the scale.
That makes perfect sense. I like
So,
that.
like, it's just, and the more you, kind of delve with this newfound awareness of, becoming a feminist, the more you read these stories and you realize, like, there was nothing that woman could have done different that would have prevented whatever happened to her. Like, whether that be murder or strangulation or rape, God forbid, like, all these things that just happened. Like, you would have had to have had, mind reading, like Professor X level kind of mind reading abilities to be able to suss out whether the person that is getting close to you is like a killer or not, or is somebody that's going to, eventually resent you down the road. Because, like, it doesn't always start as, like, maybe some red flags that you might have missed. Because, like, a lot of people will conceal the shit out of their bad behavior until, like, they feel like you're trapped and you can't go anywhere, which is another reason why I'm against Tradwife lifestyles, because it traps you.
Or they'll just apologize and say that they're going to change, and then they never do, and it just keeps putting off you
It's a
leaving
cycle.
till it makes it, like, impossible. I also wonder, like, we sometimes forget the fact that we are biologically driven creatures, and some women, a lot, I would say, are straight. They're attracted to men. So they're looking around and they're saying, how do I get a man? Like, how do I get some, how do I get a man? Like, I want to know. And so then they notice that, oh, men don't seem to be attracted to feminists. Men don't seem to. So, a lot of that could just be, and until you really deal with men and until you deal with several men, right? You don't start to see the pattern. If all you've seen before is like movies and cute, TikTok couples and all this kind of stuff, you're thinking there's somebody out there for everyone. Or you're thinking, but you're just thinking, how am I going to get a man? How am I going to attract a man? And at some point, as a straight woman, you're going to fall down like these kinds of rabbit holes if you don't know any better. Or again, if somebody hasn't been teaching you this. Or, again, because of our human nature, we tend to have to go through canon events before we really get it. So to me, a lot of it too is just like teenage girls also have hormones. Like they also have sexual desires.
Right.
And so when they look at how do I make myself attractive to a man, they're not always thinking about it critically and logically. They're like, oh, the boys don't like feminists. And what has feminism done for me?
Right.
And it's like, baby, you're 17. Of course, like you're a child. Like feminism has done a lot for you too, by the way. It has. It just, when you're swimming in the water, like fish don't know that they're swimming in water. It's like until these laws become so unhinged and so unregulated and so like against women, you're not going to realize that you're a fish on land, because right now you're a fish in water.
Absolutely. They're about to see real quick how good we, I guess, had it, so to speak. You know what I mean?
For those beautiful 10 years or whatever.
Right. And then now they're trying to just push everything back to y'all. I keep saying, y'all think y'all want to be Tradwives. The Handmaid's Tale is like right around the corner, if you ask me. The way things are going with this election and all the crap that they're trying to do and all the laws they're trying to overturn and they're all to do with women. Somehow, some way, let's take women's rights away.
The dominoes are stacked. They just have yet to fall. And like, I'm not trying to fearmonger y'all. I'm really, really not trying to like fearmonger y'all. And I'll probably come out with like a episode later on down the road where I dive into Project 2025, so y'all don't have to, because that thing is like 900 pages.
We should just sit there and read that out loud, honestly. It should just take turns.
Yeah. And so like, because they control, 2/3 of our government, like it's bound to happen, honestly.
I agree.
Like these states like individually overturning these rights that we've had for the longest time, it's inevitable, basically.
And the reason that feminism is so important is because this is consistently the solution to the problems that men cause. They're trying to take away women's rights when we are not responsible for basically any of the crime that happens, any of the assault that happens, any of the organized crime that happens. Men are responsible for over 90% of all that shit. And whose rights are they taking away? Ours. And what's the solution to the loneliness epidemic? Give every man a wife. What's the solution to the male fragility crisis, the male unemployment crisis? Just take women out. Don't give them the opportunity, and then men will step up, and when there's no competition, and then they'll step up into being normal, respectable human beings. But as long as women,
they've never done, and they never will do.
And they never will do. And then they'll bring women in again to clean up the mess. And then once we're done cleaning up the mess and we start to get our bearings about, under us, then they'll kick us out again. It's the same cycle. It repeats every.
I do think it's probably going to be a little different this time. And the only reason why I say that is because this generation of women, so like the end of Gen X, then millennials, and then now Gen Alpha, all we know is having the rights to our bodies and being able to work and being able to have a bank account and all that stuff. We don't know necessarily what it's like to not have that. And I think because we've gotten a taste of that freedom, there's a decent chance that a big chunk of us are not going to let it go back to that. Because not to sound over dramatic, but I'm willing to die for my cause. Because I'm literally not about to be under the thumb of a man. You're not finna take my bank account. You're not finna force me to live with somebody. I'm not having no fucking kids. Like I don't care how many rights they try to take. I just feel like women really have to stick together and if one of the ways we can do that is to like for the women who are single, stay single and just let these guys starve themselves out or whatever we got to do. But they can change the laws, but like you can't take my mind, if that makes sense. Like you can change the laws, but I'm not folding under these laws. I would rather die. And I'm not just saying that to be dramatic. I'm saying it because that's just facts. I'm not, because to me, if I'm living in a prison, life is not worth living to me.
Yeah.
And that's just me. I'm not willing to be subjugated or go back to, it's like, oh, you have to have a husband or otherwise they're going to tax the hell out of you and they're going to make your rent or mortgage go up to $5,000 a month. Or, I can see that happening. I can see them making it unbearable for women to, be able to live on our own. And those of us who are more and more every day, more and more women are getting away from men in relationships and just focusing on their kids and focusing on their families. And we know it's making an impact because that's the reason why they feel like they need to roll these rights back in the first place. Because more and more, so many women are choosing not to have kids. A lot of women are choosing not to get married. There's a lot of women who are gay and they're not dealing with men at all. Now they want to mess with the LGBT community and take away their rights to marry and all that stuff. It's just a mess. This whole thing is a mess. All because women got our rights and now they're seeing what women would rather do with our rights, and that's not be under the thumb of a man unless you want to be. We don't have to be now, and that's a problem for them. But we got a taste of freedom, so I just don't know how this is going to play out as far as if it's going to really go over, because it's too many of us that only know freedom. Do you get what I mean? If they would have pulled this back in, well, they did pulled it back in Gen X or the silent generation or whatever. The women didn't have choices, so they had a bunch of kids that they didn't want, and they couldn't work, and and that's all they knew. But we know freedom to some degree, so I'm just wondering how that's going to play out. What you think?
I look at Iran in the 1970s, and that still scares me. Like, because they had it all. They could wear whatever they want. They could work. They had, technological advancements in that country that women were spearheading. And just like that, overnight, the Taliban came and, overtook the government and put a bunch of like religious, they married it with religion. And they said that you will go to hell if you don't do this. And the brainwashing then started, and now these new generations growing up, that's all they know. And that scares me precisely because this is like kind of the last detour I wanted to take, before we kind of wrap this up. But the thing that a lot of people don't understand about the original Tradwives is that it was and is deeply interwoven with Christianity. And so even though they have secular people on board now, we've seen a lot of secular people turn to Christianity once it starts making them money, or once they commit fraud or assault or something like that, right? Like we've seen Joe Rogan, Russell Brand, all these guys, all of a sudden they're Christian, they're getting baptized, like all of a sudden, right? And the thing about interweaving Tradwifery with religion is that that's what a lot of people didn't understand about Ballerina Farms and Hannah Nealman and her quitting, Juilliard Ballet, which is
the cream of the crop.
The cream of the crop, like to the point of, it's just one of the most exclusive programs in the world.
I think they only admit like 5% of people that apply.
Yes. The reason that she was able to give all that up so easily and never look back is because eternity is at stake. We're talking about things in practical terms, right? Like Sovereign, you're saying your husband could get hit by a car and, whatever. But the thing is, when it's interwoven with religion, there's also the church to fall back on. It's not as scary. There's like this kind of, social safety net that you have when you are in that religious community. So the women are not as scared to take that risk, first of all. Second of all, it is tied to eternal life. So for Hannah Nealman to give up ballet was actually a very easy decision, because if she hadn't done that, she wouldn't be able to, according to the Book of Mormon, she wouldn't then be able to spend eternity on a planet all to themselves with just her children and her husband. And if at any point she divorces him, she gives up that right to spend eternity with them. And again, when you're fed these things as a kid, your brain develops differently. You start to think of things as earthly things and eternal things. And the earthly things are ashes, they don't matter. And this is how religion has been able to control the masses.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to say that because I think that once you marry it back with religion, it's over.
I agree with that. I'm just wondering because this country has gone, like a big chunk of people have gone secular now. Now that's what's making it tricky. Because there's a lot of people that still say that they are religious and believe in afterlives and heavens and hells and whatever else. But there's also a lot of us that aren't, and more people are coming out as being either atheist or agnostic. So, which is really the same thing in my opinion, but it's different. But it's, to me, it's adjacent, and that's the part where in this country, this country is so money driven. The morals is kind of out the window for a lot of people. People don't mind scamming each other, So I just wonder how that's gonna go over if, I don't know what the percentage is, but let's just say 30% or half of the people in this country are not religious. Will that work on? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that's the difference. Like a lot of other countries are deeply religious and they're willing to do anything to go to heaven. But over here, people are willing to do everything to be famous or to get money or, the worldly stuff. So that's where I'm wondering how that's going to play out.
Well, if Project 2025 goes through, they're literally trying to get rid of the Department of Education.
I know.
So if people are uneducated and they also have faith-based funding in that project. So it concerns the access of religious organizations to government funding without having government regulations attached. And so if enacted, these proposals would upend longstanding church-state protections that bar direct taxpayer funding of religious organizations without safeguards in place. So basically, churches would be able to lobby the government for money and say that we're spreading good morals. We're spreading, we're trying to whatever. And now they have money. And that's where it, the loop kind of closes back up because it is still about money. But it's also about money. Yeah.
If they throw out separation of church and state, I honestly feel like this country is over.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's really over. Like it's done.
But I think that's the plan.
Because the Constitution.
That is 100% the plan. After reading Project 2025, that's the plan.
They want to overthrow the entire Constitution because every time I talk about this to people, the first thing people say is, "Oh, they can't do that."
Yeah.
And you're only saying they can't do that because you believe that they're still going by the Constitution. Well, when they throw that out, they can do what they want. And I know, and I'm just wondering how the people are going to fight it. Because people are basing it on thinking they can't do that because of the Constitution.
Yes.
Literally, the Constitution will probably be thrown out. I just don't know who's going to allow this to happen. Like, that's the
men are, because it benefits them.
No, I'm talking about like the other half, because you know how they never had 2/3 of the House and now they have it. There's always those people that's willing to be whistleblowers and who is willing to blow up the spot, if you will. So I'm just wondering, like, there's a part of me that's still a tad bit hopeful that somebody's going to blow up the spot, if you know what I mean. Like somebody's going to be a whistleblower or somebody's going to out somebody, or I promise you, if they overthrow the Constitution, I think I'm leaving this country. I'm not even joking, because I've already been thinking about where I want to go. Now, I'm not saying that any places are any better, but when it comes to stuff like this, like education and
just like for your
separation of
safety.
Church and it's like what the fuck.
No, it's terrifying, but I really do legitimately think that is their plan.
Here's the thing. This is the crazy part. I just want to say this real quick. The United States is due to fall. Like the horrible things that the United States has done to other countries and for hundreds of years or however long. Like, it makes sense that eventually, of course, the people would vote for their own demise, because on a grand scale, the United States deserves everything that's finna happen to it. The problem is those of us that didn't do anything wrong, and we're the ones that are going, like who didn't vote for Trump, or those of us who don't be out here scamming people, and we don't we believe in equality, and we want to feed the homeless, and we want everybody to be okay. People like us suffer, and that's the part that I don't agree with. But I do agree with the fall of the United States. I mean, I hate to say that, but like you're gonna, the United States is reaping what they sow.
Yep.
This country, half this country showed us on election day how racist they still are, how hateful and spiteful they still are. So yeah, it makes sense that they are finna get what's coming to them.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to be here. I just don't want to be here when it happens.
Like, we should.
I want to watch
here.
From Canada or somewhere, that fucking Tokyo,
because
anywhere.
There are terrible
things
that
here.
happen during periods of anarchy. Terrible things that have happened to women. So
it's always the women that suffer.
It's always because there's a very specific type of crime that only happens to women. That women are the only targets of, and that's rape. I'm sorry. Like sometimes like boys can be victims too, and I'm not trying to make this like all about us, but it's not the rule. It's the exception sometimes. Like sometimes men are the targets, but overly majority of the time, like it's women. Like we are the prime targets of sexual violent crimes. So
and all of this happens when men get insecure. And what they've done is elect the most insecure of them to office.
Oh my God.
So now we're all fucked. And on that note, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we'll do a mailbag question. How about that?
And we're back. The mail's here, guys. Let's go ahead and open this up. See here. When I openly express my feminist views in front of my family in response to misogynistic things said, men in my family start making fun of me. After this happened a few times, my mom said to me that although my views were correct and that I should act on them in practice, I shouldn't vocalize it like that in front of people, because then people might start to instigate me to set me off. Also because it will give men more information to manipulate me in romantic situations. I did understand her point, but I feel like if we keep being quiet on misogynistic jokes, it will continue happening, and I can't stand it anymore. What do you think is the correct way to handle these situations? Also, I have noticed that whenever I watch romantic content, series, movies, I start fantasizing about and craving relationships, and I feel like I'm going backwards in my decentering men journey. I don't want to just settle for some guy. I would prefer to be single than be with a man just for the sake of it. Do you think not watching romantic content should be part of the decenterment journey?
I love that last part of that question, but we can get to that at the end. But I do think that you should decenter romantic content. And I think because a lot of it is also bullshit. Like a lot of what is shown to women as romantic is actually A, not romantic and is just the male gaze over and over again. And B, it requires most of the time the woman to decenter herself. You very rarely see romantic movies about a man giving up his career and moving to the country. You very rarely see romantic movies about a man changing his mind on having kids and falling in love with a woman and bearing her children. You just don't see those kinds of things. Typically, romantic content disadvantages the woman, and you don't see a lot of men settling the same way that women do in romantic content.
Very true.
So to me, the answer to that is a very obvious yes. And in fact, I've recommended that to women before because I do think that consuming romantic content will make you crave something that doesn't actually exist in real life. We have to get real about what romance and marriage actually is. And it's not those things. Like, even if you do find a good partner, your life is, God forbid that it looks like that. Like most rom-coms make it look, it's a lot of it requires decentering yourself as a woman. And I don't even believe that what these women are finding in these rom-coms or just romantic movies in general is love at all. It's just a different form of submission.
Yep.
But that's my piece on that.
Yeah, and I actually don't think you have to completely, not watch romantic films. Like, you can still watch them, but maybe like keep in mind that like if the director was a man, the producer was a man, main character is probably a man, like maybe it's not, you weren't the intended audience to like receive these messages, and it's just like it's not really like, it's just fantasy, right? Like, it doesn't, like, none of this stuff actually happens, or if it does, it's still all about the male gaze, like Lisa said. So with that in mind, like, I mean, there's still some romantic films you can watch that are directed and written by women. I think that those are slightly better because they're more based in reality than the ones directed, produced by men. So
Absolutely.
just be sure, I mean, you can do your vetting too. Like, you can just look up who the producer, director, and all these other
Writer,
executives were.
yeah.
And go about it that way if you like if you don't want to not watch romantic like rom-coms and stuff like that, like there are ways you can still like enjoy all that stuff, but just keep in mind that like it was written for a male fantasy, and like because like these films are usually watched like with the boyfriend with you. So
I agree. I think it's written, I think you are the intended audience, but it is written by a man. So it's kind of the same thing of like men are telling you what they think is attractive.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that involves giving up your own life
Yeah.
and submitting to their whims and desires.
yeah, see if you can spot some subliminal messaging in there.
Yeah, exactly. Watch it with a critical eye and make sure that you don't fall for that, because a lot of men will try and like entrap you with that same kind of setup of like push and pull. It's a roller coaster ride, you're on this whirlwind romance, and then all of a sudden he breaks some terrible news to you, and then you like, I don't know. I just feel like a lot of that is made to actually gaslight and confuse women at the end of the day.
Also, I think that if you're young, you don't have to like abstain completely from relationships. Like, if that's still something that you want and it will make you happy, and like, because we're still human beings, right? We crave this kind of like human connection and things that you can only experience in relationships. And like, I don't want to be the one to tell you to completely just stop dating men. And you're only like, what, 21 to like 23, and you're still having yet to like gain some of these experiences that we've been kind of talking about with men and relationships. And
No, I think that she just has to get clear about why she's disentering, if she's not already clear. The exact reason why you're disentering men, if it's just like to get through college right now, you don't want to lose focus, or is it because you've put too much time and energy into them in the past and it's like it didn't bring you any good result? I mean, whatever the reason is, you have to be clear about that reason, and then that'll help you to stay on track. But it sounds like she's still interested in dating and stuff, but maybe right now she's just taking a break, which I would always recommend women to do, because you really truly get to know yourself for real, in my opinion, when you're single and you don't have anybody like distracting you and distracting your judgment. That is like the best time. And it's not to say you can't get to know yourself in a relationship. I just feel like to reach the maximum effect of that is just be by yourself for a while. And really, you really get to know yourself, and you don't have anybody in your ear to like telling you things that'll throw off your judgment. Because guys can very, very much be a distraction, like a huge distraction, especially when you're trying to accomplish something. So as long as you know and you're very clear why you're disentering men, that figure that out and it'll help you stay on track. But as far as like the family members who make fun of you because of your feminist views, I'm going to tell you to pick your battles, because there's going to always be people that are going to not agree with you on certain things or want to make fun of you. I don't know what your personality type is, but I know me, if I was in that situation, I go for the jugular. So the person that is making fun of me, I'm going to throw back in their face something that I know they're ashamed of. But that's just me. I'm not telling you to do that. If you don't have that mindset or personality, I would not even bother bringing it up to people if you know it's going to set you off. You know it's going to upset you. You know it's not going to really make a difference. It's like, don't even bother setting yourself up for that. But if you have the gall to go for the jugular, like I would, like, hey, I feel like people will only understand how something feels when they're in that position. If you're not willing or you're not ready to put somebody in that position to feel it, then I would just stay away from it altogether.
Yeah, you can't teach men feminism. Sorry.
You can't.
It's a waste of energy and effort, time, all that shit. Just, I mean, I'm not going to say like keep it to yourself.
Focus your energy on like other women.
Definitely. Just pour all that back into women, people who just get it.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Yeah, because in a way you're like centering men doing that, you know, like keep trying to bark up that tree. And it's like, you know what? It is what it is.
Let them sit in their ignorance.
Yeah.
And if they want to make misogynistic jokes, like just let them.
Yeah, and they're black holes. That's what you got to remember about misogynistic men and unevolved men in general. They're a black hole. They will keep taking and taking and taking. And men, again, especially unevolved men, they're operating in a lizard brain capacity. They are, and I'm not joking, and I do say this, like, I know it sounds funny and it may sound dramatic, but to me, a lot of men who are unevolved and stuck in the patriarchy and all of that, they are not thinking above the level of a dog.
Nope.
They are submissive, and whoever is barking the loudest wins. So that is what they're doing to you. When they're trying to, make fun of you, talk over you, they're doing it more. They are in an animal mindset.
Absolutely.
It's about dominance and submission. And so you can't speak to people about feminism that think on terms like that. You just can't. You're not going to get it. It's like you sit down and explain it to a dog. And then if you can do that successfully, then you can explain it to a man. Like, I'm so serious.
Amen.
I totally agree. And another thing to remember too is a lot of times some men know that you're right with what you're saying, but they will never admit that. And they get a kick out of, they really don't want women to be aware. They don't want you to have the answers. They don't want you to be put on game. Yeah, because it won't benefit them. Even if it's family members, like they don't want you to know what you're talking about. So deep down, a lot of times they know that you are right. But because of how unevolved they are and how their brains work, they're going to fight you no matter what. They'll do it just to get a rise out of you. And the fact that you know that they're doing it to get a rise out of you should automatically deter you from even wasting your time.
Absolutely.
Because that's all you would be doing is wasting your time, literally.
It's like you're kind of speaking a whole different language when you're trying to teach men basic empathy. If they don't have a concept of empathy or if they've never experienced empathy for anything maybe besides other than a dog. So it's just, you just can't, preach to the morally bankrupt. And I don't know how many times I have to say that, but it's just, you really can't. And I hate that's just how it is. And I hate being one of those defeatist mindset feminists, but it really, you just can't teach men. It's not our job. It's not our place. There are so many resources for them to learn about feminism if that's truly what they want. And like, if they come from like an earnest place about wanting to learn about feminism, that's the only time I am pro teach men feminism.
Absolutely.
Other than that, just do not do it. Don't even try it.
If they're coming from an earnest place, they would look up the resources on their own.
They would.
And would only ever like reach out to you if there was like a specific thing or like a situation they needed advice on or something like that. But a man who is going to sit you down and be like, okay, so like tell me, no, tell him to fuck off right away, because chances are he's going to sit there and want to play devil's advocate with you and be like, well, what about the things that men experience? No, go online and argue with whoever's online, because no.
I completely agree. As you get older, y'all said she was 20 or 21?
Well, that's what I said. I was assuming.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever age you are, as you get older, you're going to realize when and when not to fight battles. It'll just come naturally to you. Right now, it sounds like you'll be wasting your time with these particular people. So, I don't know. If you really got to get out what you have to say, write it down, start a vlog or something. But don't waste your time.
Get a Twitter and start angrily shouting into the void.
That's that's what we all did. That's
Literally.
what we all did. And now we focus our energy on women. And yeah, there are some well-meaning men in my comments. There are well-meaning men in our community that are educating other men. So don't worry. The resources are out there.
Right.
You know, you don't need to educate these men because they don't want to be educated. It's like if somebody
They're committing to
randomly
misunderstanding you.
Yeah, like sat you down and tried to teach you welding or something, and you're like, I'm never going to weld a damn thing in my life. Like, men think that they have no need for feminism, and
Right.
so that's what it is.
To them, feminism is the enemy. Feminism is going to stop them from getting what they want from women. So they're going to always reject it no matter what. The ones that are unevolved.
I think that's the best point of, yeah, exactly.
All right. I hope we've answered all your questions here. Whoever you are, I hope you're listening and that it gives you a little bit more confidence and perspective on how you're going through it. So thank you so much for writing to us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I always look forward to these.
Me too. I know. And they're always
they're
like
fun. They're cute.
Yeah. We never know what they are before we start reading them. So
that's cool.
It's fun. Okay, so I think it's my recommendation this week, and I just going along with the episode, I wanted to recommend the book A Well-Trained Wife by Tia Levings. It is the story of a tradwife who did everything right. And if anybody's thinking about going down that path, that is the book you should read because she recounts her experience. I don't think it's much of a spoiler to say that she is no longer married to that man, at least as far as I know. And yeah, it's a very haunting memoir. And trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning. Do not read if you are sensitive to violence or sexual violence or anything like that. I have to give you that trigger warning. It is horrifying, but it is also the reality for a lot of tradwives, as she will expose, especially ones that are tied in with any sort of religious, upbringing or religious mentality. That is a book that's going to expose the reality of it. So I highly recommend that y'all read that. And I also highly recommend that y'all find our Patreon and recommend this podcast to your friends and know that we are dropping episodes every Monday. We do not plan to take off any breaks for the holidays. We are hoping to have those episodes loaded up for y'all so that we're not skipping any weeks, so that we stay consistent. But please, so that we can keep doing that, make sure that you keep sharing this with friends, new people that you meet, put the podcast on playlists and stuff, leave us 5-star ratings, just whatever you can do. That will help us to keep going with this basically because it is a big undertaking. It's a lot of effort and we just appreciate y'all's support so much. Shout out to our Patreon VIPs. And we also want to give a special warm shout out to Clara and Kelsey, our newest VIP subscribers. Thank you so much for being here. We love you guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Clara and Kelsey.
Shout out to anyone that's subscribed to the Patreon at all. We really appreciate you so very much. Please stay tuned. We're going to have more community posts coming, more polls as we have gotten out sort of our first batch of episodes. We want to know how y'all feel about that, what y'all think, and how we can make it better. So be thinking about that because those questions are coming soon. Yeah, so we have a lot more coming down that pike, down that Patreon pike. Keep an eye out, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Adios.